Welcome back. You're watching NewsX. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. The Donald Trump-led invasion of Venezuela and the subsequent capture of Maduro has drawn mixed reactions from the world. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea and Latin American countries have all condemned it in the strongest words. Countries like India, Japan and Australia have expressed their concerns and called it a matter of concern. Europe, on the other hand, have remained largely mum, not condemning Trump's actions and being rather cautious in their approach. With Maduro now being indicted, remains to be seen what happens next. Joining us to decode and discuss this situation that has developed in this Latin American country of Venezuela is Ambassador Ajay Bisaria, former High Commissioner of India to Canada and Pakistan. Ambassador Bisaria, thank you for being with us today on NewsX. What do you make of this unprecedented strike in Venezuela yesterday?
Well, I think it was very dramatic. It was unprecedented in many ways, but also it shouldn't have come as a complete surprise because this has been the stated policy of the Trump administration, the so-called Donroe Doctrine, which builds on the Monroe Doctrine of complete dominance in the Western Hemisphere. And this is being talked about for a while by the Trump administration. Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, was in charge of implementing it. So it wasn't a complete surprise that this kind of operation should have taken place because it is about dominance in the Western Hemisphere. That was part of what was called the Heritage Institute's Project 2025. It was also mentioned in the national security strategy of the Trump administration that was released. And it is therefore not a surprise. What is surprising, of course, is the swiftness, the efficiency of the operation, the fact that it could happen without too many casualties. And, it really reminded one of the last operation of extraction which the US did in our part of the world, which is in Pakistan, where they found the Al-Qaeda chief in 2011,
Yes.
Osama bin Laden, and they extracted and executed him in that case. So I think this was not a complete surprise, but certainly a surprise in the timing and execution.
What happens next now in Venezuela? Obviously, it's a wait and watch situation, but what do you expect is going to play out now politically there? Of course, the vice president has become the president, the acting president, at least for now. But with Donald Trump indicating that the US intends to govern Venezuela, at least until a just transition takes place, what are we expecting next politically there?
Well, I think this play goes much deeper than just governing a misgoverned Venezuela. It is also about oil and the huge reserves of oil. So what Trump said yesterday was that the U.S. will run Venezuela until they have a proper administration, but they would also have U.S. companies going in for taking care of the Venezuelan oil. And I think the larger geopolitical implications are also clear because a large part of that Venezuelan oil was going to China. And this is what the Donroe Doctrine is about, having China getting out of America's backyard. So it will be about countering Chinese influence, countering Russian influence, which the US believes has increased in its backyard. And I think as for Venezuela itself, the attempt will be to stabilize matters but keep them firmly under US control so that US also controls the natural resources, the oil.
Okay. Also, what did you make of the global reactions that have come in? Were they on expected lines or did any surprise you? Also, there's a UNSC meeting now expected tomorrow.
Yes, I think the reaction is on fairly expected lines. Europe is ambivalent because remember, people all across the world were condemning the Maduro regime for its successes. So that was certainly something that would be balanced against this violation of the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Venezuela. So I think countries will be a little conflicted in dealing with it, particularly in the West, particularly the allies and partners of the United States. But the interesting reaction is from China and Russia, because these adversaries of the US have been told that they cannot mess in the US backyard, but at the same time, the US is emphasizing a sphere of influence based world where it expresses its dominance in its hemisphere. The natural question to ask geopolitically is, will it be ceding such spheres of influence to China in the Indus, the guilty party in doing invasions of other countries? So I don't think too much will come out of it. There would be some noise, but the US veto will ensure that no resolution really gets passed.
Now, India has, of course, been largely neutral in our response. We've, of course, urged restraint. But what is the fallout of this going to be on India, if any? Also, as a consumer point of view, given the fact that this will perhaps affect global oil markets? Ambassador Bisaria.
Yes, so for India, this is a distant theater, but the principle is very important. The principle of territorial integrity of countries is important. Of course, the judgment would have to be made in the peculiar circumstances of this particular operation. And I think the larger message India will take is of needing to strengthen oneself, to have that kind of security, because the United States will not rush to India's defense if there is a problem at the borders. So I think that is one message India will take away in terms of the geopolitics. The other question US partners will ask is whether it is going to be so focused on its Western hemisphere that it loses interest in all theaters, including the Indo-Pacific. And that is, again, a conversation India will have with the United States, perhaps more privately. But I think for India, it is a development of concern, a development to watch. But India's reaction will not be shrill. It will be quiet. It will be diplomacy. It will be a bit of balancing and emphasizing both the pride on that basis. So I think expect a high-profile sort of trial. It would continue. It will probably drag on. I don't think he will be mistreated. At the end of it, there could be a deal of returning him if he, promises good behavior. But at the moment, it's going to be a long drawn trial.
All right, Ambassador Ajay Bisaria, for joining us with your perspective on this segment. Thanks indeed.